Hey everybody, what's up? Time for another game theory community sort of discussion video. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super chat, PayPal, Patreon. If you want to support the channel, I appreciate it. Doesn't hurt you to at least leave a like or sub, or if you don't want to, whatever. Anyway, today I want to talk about beta tests, and I want to talk about a lot of different topics relating to beta tests, about how to predict games by watching beta tests. And I also want to talk about the topic of, generally speaking, most games don't drastically change from beta test to, the final product, right? Because even if we're thinking about a game like 2XKO, right? And you can put your comments about this, about if there have been actual games that have had drastic changes from the beta to final version. If we're thinking about 2XKO, and I'm going to talk shit about 2XKO a little bit, 2XKO is kind of uniquely incompetent, isn't it? Because again, generally speaking, games don't change that much from the beta to the final version, right? That's how I've been able to predict so many games, right? Because the idea of how the game is going to work, you can generally see it, right? Like if I think about, let's think about this past generation of games, or 10, 15 years, whatever it's been. I mean, you would actually say, I think Street Fighter V is, with a grain of salt, potentially a bit of an outlier, because the very first footage of Street Fighter V, no one ever actually really played it, right? It had juggles and like off the ground bounces and all sorts of wacky stuff, but maybe that's being a little bit misleading because no one actually ever played that. But once the game actually got to the beta, to like the first footage of actual people playing it, and I talked about how it was going to work, that basically is what it is, right? Like I remember, say, Ryu had some guaranteed guard break, Hadouken stuff, but generally speaking, once the game was actually in some form of playable format, the game perspective of the game to the final release didn't really change, right? Just like if we were thinking about, say, Guilty Gear Strive, right? Did Guilty Gear Strive drastically change? I mean, I actually went back and looked at my very first prediction videos of the game and all that kind of stuff. Even in those first prediction videos of the game and talking about how the game was going to work, I even talk about that I think the wall is on a timer. Isn't that crazy, dude? I was like, I think the wall is actually on a timer in this game, right? And you can go watch the footage, and, there were some certain things, but, people talking about the game is going to be the most risky game ever to jump. There's never any reason to believe that. The wall, you slid a little bit more down in the beta, that you could try to do some Okazema, but there was never really any reason to believe the game was going to work like that. It was supposedly the most risky game ever to jump in, but it was a year and a half before they even had any guard stun after blocking an air attack, right? So, I mean, you could see that basically the game was going to turn out the way it was going to, right? Just like Street Fighter VI when I predicted that game, right? The game was what it was going to be. Dragon Ball FighterZ, a little bit of an asterisk mark, because if you recall, there were some things in early betas that were not in the final version of the game that I talked about. Like, do you remember when I was talking about originally that you could combo into Dragon Rush after a vanish? Do you remember no one did that? The original Evo, even though Max and all these other guys were saying, I'm like, dude, why doesn't anyone try Dragon Rush after the vanish? And then the next beta, that's all anyone did, right? But I suppose a potential meta that was taken out of Dragon Ball FighterZ would be, do you recall that, and this is back, you think about Dragon Ball FighterZ now, people complain about auto combos all the time now, right? But do you remember when people said that auto combos weren't good enough when the game was first coming out and those betas? But do you remember what I said, that auto combos were actually too good in the beta? Because imagine if this is what it would have been like in the final version of the game. People probably forget, but in the original betas of Dragon Ball FighterZ, every time you did an auto combo, the smash gave you a full bar. Do people remember that? Every time you did an auto combo and it smashed, or did a dynamic, boom, it automatically gave you a full super. And I'm like, oh, this is completely broken. Why don't people just do auto combo vanish over and over again? Because it keeps building meter. I'm like, this game is going to be, they have to get rid of this. And you could even dynamic to keep building Dragon Balls. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. They have to remove this in the final version of the game. Now, thankfully, I guess someone must have been listening, because once the final version of the game came out, if you recall, only Trunks, and I made a video of it, could still do multiple dynamics in a combo. But imagine if that would have stayed in the final version of the game, right? Especially when people complain about auto combos now. But generally speaking, Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, there are some other differences, right? But the game is what it is, right? But to talk about a game like 2XKO, 2XKO is almost uniquely incompetent, isn't it? When we think that, generally speaking, at least the idea of what a game is going to be is in the beta, 2XKO, the developers themselves have, again, the game is almost 10 years old now. They are constantly changing what the game is even going to be. They don't even know it's fun. They've said that before. Yeah, we don't know what's fun. Oh, we think this isn't fun though. Oh, we're going to ask you if it's fun. Is it fun? Yeah, we need to put something new in the game. We thought of something brand new that no one's ever done before. Auto combos. What? Auto combos are something brand new that no one's ever done before in a game? Again, constantly changes stuff. Oh, this character's a zoning. I don't think characters like zoning, so we're going to get rid of this character now. We're going to make them play different. Again, I guess you could say, is this something that you could say that is actually new about 2XKO? That it is so completely incompetent. It is one of the few examples of a game that, who knows what the idea is totally going to be, because the developers keep on changing what works and doesn't work because they don't even know themselves, right? I mean, that's kind of that's kind of funny when you think about it, actually, right? And of course, I know someone was like, oh, well, you know, you're being hard on them just because of how they screwed you over and all this kind of stuff. Listen, I said this before. You can play 2XKO. You can watch people that talk shit about me and lie about me. I'm not afraid. If anything, I'm actually happy that 2XKO has gone so badly, because it proves everything that I've talked about. This nepotism, and that people that think that they're so amazing at games and that they're the galaxy brains, even though they're people that I used to help and ask me for help, right? I've showed, and this has showed, that they are not competent, right? It actually is, it's quite curious to me, because when we think about that, generally speaking, you would think that if someone was going to be making a game, they must go to the boss, whoever is the head boss, right? And just be like, hey, we want to make a fighting game, and this is the idea of the fighting game, right? I can only imagine, and again, 2XKO was originally like a robot game, right? And then they just, whatever. Then it was a single player game. Then it was a tag team game. Then they were just like, we have no idea of what we're doing. So let's take this from this game and put it in here. Let's take this from this game in here. Oh, 10 years later, the game's still not out. We don't know what we're doing, even though we're being, you know, we're showing ourselves as the greatest minds in the history of fighting games, right? It would be curious that, you know, if anyone ever does a deep dive, right? If anyone actually says what happened behind the scenes, imagine, like, how did they originally shill this game to Riot? Where they're like, hey, this is a fighting game and this is going to be how it's going to work. And can you imagine? I mean, Riot is still, I would assume, they're not doing this out of the goodness of the hearts, right? These people have been getting paid a yearly salary, I assume, for almost 10 years now, right? Everybody, right? If you're working on the game, I assume you're getting paid for it. Is no one at Riot being like, where's all these tens of thousands of dollars we're going for? Weren't we making a fighting game? Weren't we making a fighting game? Who are all these people that we're like paying their life for these salaries, and they've put out nothing? Who is the person? Was it Tom or Tony Cannon or something that told me this guy's a galaxy brain and they've done all this stuff in games and I've just been paying for their life for like the past 5 years, 10 years, right? You know, you think about how movies, like let's say recently there's the Mission Impossible movies, right? And it's just, no matter how good Mission Impossible does, I thought the last movie was shit. Personally, it was basically like a cartoon, which normally I kind of like the Mission Impossible movies, but it went full blown cartoon mode, full blown potato. Didn't like it. I don't know about anyone else that saw it, but you know, even if the movie was great, it's almost impossible to make the money back, right? And you would have to think that Riot in this 2XKO, they've been paying for people's lives for this game for how many years? And even if the game comes out, and again, I've said it before. You can play the game. You can play any game that I don't like, whatever. I mean, I don't control you, right? Like, unlike other people, I don't tell you not to watch my haters or anything, right? Go watch people that lie about me. I'm not like afraid of you learning something there because I know they can't compete with me, right? But you can watch whoever you want to watch, right? Like, I'm not afraid of them, dude. So you have your own life. You can play 2xKO, you can play Marvel Token, whatever you want to play. But it is interesting to me that you got to think that no matter what, when 2xKO comes out, can it even make its money back? It's been in development hell for so long, just like Mission Impossible movies that kept on blowing up in terms of, how long it's taking to make, right? So, I mean, that's a kind of a thing that's interesting, that 2xKO, the most unique thing about it is how incompetent it is, right? I would say, and that's not that every fighting game is made so amazingly nowadays in the first place, because obviously that's not the case, right? But 2xKO is almost extraordinary in the incompetence, right? Again, I've said this before. You know that if I made a game, I would never hear the end of it. If it took me 10 years and I showed you what the people of 2xKO have done, right? I would never hear the end of it. They would be like, Clayton, you're the person that has done all these things that no one else has ever done, and you've been getting paid for 10 years, and this is the product that this is what you have so far, and it's still not out. I would never hear the end of it. And that's just me as a single person, because there's so many people that hate me, right? And this is an entire team of incompetent fucktards, right? Think about that, right? Even me, just, drawing Pikachu pictures and all this kind of stuff, rambling about video games, I have put out new ideas that have not been done in fighting games, just talking about games, right? Haven't I? I know not everybody watches the nerdy videos, but guess what? I know it hurts. I know it hurts that me, this person talking to you right now, that you believe is a terrible person, that you make up weird delusions in your mind that I must be a terrible person, but unfortunately, this person you think is a terrible person, even when I'm rambling about games, I've still come up with better ideas and new ideas that no one has said anything about games like I have said, in this 2xKO. Do you see any new perspective so far in 2xKO? No. I randomly go on YouTube and I make random game theory videos, and I've come up with new shit that no one has ever talked about. And I'm not getting paid to do it, right? Now, again, for betas too, I know, because people were asking, oh, you're going to play the Marvel Token game and you should predict these games too. And, just cement your legacy even more. You know what? I mean, I have no desire to play the Token game. Maybe if a character comes out that maybe I want to play Gambit Rogue or Psylocke or something, or Cyclops, I mean, it doesn't interest me whatsoever. Again, I play video games so rarely. But I've always said this before. If you, the person watching this, if you want to be able to predict games, I've said it before, right? I think you need to be able to appreciate things that you don't like, right? That actually goes for just making a game, I think, as well, right? Because what is one of the problems with 2xKO? 2xKO, they hired a bunch of people that only like one type of game. How do you hire people that only like one type of game and you want them to make a diverse cast of different playstyles and characters? It's no wonder it's been 10 years and they've barely shown anything, because they're like a thin intellectual. They only have one thought process, right? You need to be able to appreciate different perspectives. Even like when I made that Vega video recently, I don't care about Vega. Vega's not a character that I would play, but guess what? I can appreciate Vega. That's why I've been able to predict all these games, because I can appreciate different parts of video games that might not be exactly what I enjoy playing, but I can see the perspective, right? And from what I'm saying, that is, when you want to predict the game, right, you need to be able to appreciate all different play styles, and you need to be able to see the things that maybe you're not necessarily looking for, right? There's that quote I've given many times before of talent hits the target that nobody else could hit, but a true genius is the person that can see the target that no one else knew was there, right? So again, talent hits the target that nobody else could hit, but the genius is when you can see the target that no one else knew was even there, right? And so what I mean by that is, if you want to be able to predict games, get your feet wet in maybe different games that you might not necessarily play. You don't need to be an expert on it. You don't need to know the 100% ins and out, but get your feet wet in this game. Get your feet wet in this game, right? Get your feet wet in this game. So then you at least your mind has your horizon has, you've brought in your horizons a little bit. So then when you go into this endeavor or this hobby of the actual game you want to play, and you start playing this game and you start trying to predict it, or you start trying to watch the footage of the game, you're like, wait a second, I remember something like this in this other game, or I remember something like this in this other game. I can apply that knowledge to now something that I actually care about, right? Don't be so laser focused on one thing, right? And another important thing is to the people that want to predict the Marvel Tokon, whatever, is I would encourage you, and I've said this so many times before, the reason I've been able to predict games is when I watch footage, I don't just watch people that are the quotation marks good players. I watch people that are also the bad players. The people that other people say, oh, this guy sucks, don't watch them, whatever. Don't listen to them, because when it's a brand new game, nobody is 100% sure of anything, right? Nobody knows the exact properties of everything, right? So why was I able to predict games like Dragon Ball FighterZ so thoroughly? Because guess what? I didn't just watch the people that were quotation marks good, because those people that were quotation marks good, they just kept doing what was going to win for them, right? So what did I do? I took the time to watch the scrubs play, because the scrubs were mashing on buttons in all sorts of different scenarios. And when I saw these scrubs mashing on buttons in different scenarios, I actually got to see the properties of the attacks. And that's why I'm like, oh, okay, so I know how this move works. Even though good player isn't using this move like this, I can see scrub playing, and I've seen that this move works like this now. Now I can apply that knowledge, even though it wasn't fun watching the scrub play, let's say, I can apply that knowledge and actually to something I want to do, right? Does that make sense? That is what people need to be able to do if you want to be able to actually predict all these games like I have. You need to get your feet wet in different genres of games. You need to be able to appreciate different perspectives of things, right? Like, look at Dragon Ball FighterZ. I mean, I said before, for Dragon Ball FighterZ, Vegito would have been one of the only reasons I even would have played the game, right? Do you remember that? There was no Vegito in the beta. Do you think I care watching about Android 16, 17, any of these other characters? I don't give a fuck about them. But I need to be able to appreciate a perspective that is not necessarily my own. Maybe someone can be messing with this character, and even though I don't care about this character, when he's mashing on stuff, I'm like, wait a second, I can see how some of the properties of this move works. So maybe then once I actually play the game and it's a character I like, I now have more knowledge than other people. Does that make sense? Anyway, remember, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share. Support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.